Liked by the sound of violence.
Here's the other part too. You see all these fighters lashing out, and jiu-jitsu guys, you know, if someone makes a comment about how they do bad in a fight, well, you never fought, you don't know anything. Okay, fair point. There's infectious disease experts who've been doing this kind of stuff with mathematical modeling longer than you've been alive. We don't have to respect what they have to say. Like there's this demand for reverence for expertise without conferring it on literally any other form of expertise. And it's like no one needs to be taken 100% at face value, but having a little bit of deference for that is kind of important, right? I mean, I have to listen to coaches when they tell me you're wrong about this, you're right about this, and here's why. Probably because they know more. I'm reasonably fight literate, but they're experts. I should listen to them, right?
What up, everybody, and welcome back to yet another Sound of Violence podcast. We are an MMA podcast to let you know the MMA podcast you should catch, skip, and can't miss each week, even when the fucking world is falling apart, and I don't even know what's happening with most podcasts. I am Pulver, and I'm back yet again with my co-host, holding it down, Chris Medaffer. What up, dude?
Doing all right, minute. Can you see me okay? I realized I didn't even move my light yet.
Yeah, no, you're actually doing all right. I can see that it's a little different than normal, but it's working fine.
Cool. Yeah, not too bad. Not having any alcohol right now at this moment. That's because I just didn't grab anything from the fridge. I'll probably do that later when we have our other segment that we'll talk about.
That's right. The second half that's going to be coming out later this week.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, on that note, I guess I will jump right into the Papa Vodka present. Wait. The Pop-Up vodka bottles. Here's an empty bottle of Pop-Up to prove to you guys I actually drink Pop-Up. Pop-Up Vodka presents, Doug Stanhope presents our sponsors. This week, this is actually kind of a sponsor this week. One of my good buddies at New English ended up sending over a care package, which was really fucking cool of them. And I got Hop Slapped, which they actually gave me the blueberry, a 6-pack of the blueberry, 6-pack of Hop Slapped, and 2 of their barrel-aged beers, which I'm excited to try. I'm probably going to have one of those during our commentary later, but I'm excited to try Hop Slapped. And you're a New English fan from what I know, right?
Yeah, my favorites from them, from what I've gotten, like at Trader Joe's or at Jimbo's. I like the blueberry one that they do, the hazy one I bought before, and then the Zumbar. That's the Russian Imperial Stout. That
I legit,
that's a good one.
Zumbar's like probably top 2 favorite stouts in the city. Probably Zumbar it's got to be probably for me as Zumbar and Society's the Butcher are probably like my 2 favorite IRSs in the city.
Yeah, those are 2 good ones. I don't know how Speedway Stout. I mean, it's probably still the same.
Speedway Stout IRS, or is it just? No, it's Imperial, right?
Yeah, no, it's 100% Imperial.
Okay, yeah. You're right. Speedway Stout needs to be on that list. Also, I just had Burning Beard Stout this week, which was good as well.
I still haven't made my way out there to El Cajon. I can't now. I can always buy their beer.
Yeah, they're doing to-go crowlers and everything, and mix packs and all kinds of stuff. I picked up a mix pack of their Normcore, which is like their I don't remember if it's a Pils or what, but it's definitely like a lighter beer. And then I picked up a the other half of the mix pack was their Dankness Visible, I think is the name of it. But yeah, I got some good beers from them actually. And also, I should mention, I did get a case this week. I ordered a case of AleSmith's 394, which cases of 394 are like $40. So like 24 beers of 394.
I was gonna say case as in 4 6-packs, right?
Yeah, which I got delivered to me.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, like by mail. It took about a week probably. I think I ordered it about a week ago or so. And yeah, I mean, I think shipping is $20, which is pretty fair for beer shipping because it's kind of crazy right now trying to get beer shipping to happen. But yeah, I got a case of the 394, and I also ended up getting a 6-pack of. Shit. Actually, I think you can see the box behind me, but I got a 6-pack of. I think it's Forge Berry is their new sour that they made. So, or Berliner Weiss, I think technically. So I'm excited to try that as well. But first impressions on this Hop Slapped, man, New English makes great fucking IPAs. Like just super bright, pretty classic San Diego IPAs.
Yeah, that's another place I gotta fucking check out too. I think if I recall, like off like the beaten path in Sereno Valley or something like that.
Yeah, they're over by a lot of the other breweries out there, if I remember right.
Yeah, because I remember a buddy of mine, I think, told me about them when he went to Tour Holistics back in the day or some shit like that.
Yeah, they're right up the hill from there, like near all the Miramar stuff for sure. And wait, haven't you been there before? I think you might have with Kyle back in the day.
I think so.
I think so, because I think we talked about it on the show in the past.
Oh yeah. They got the Union Jack on the wall.
Oh yeah.
In the tasting room. Yeah. I remember now.
But yeah, that place, I mean, in general, their beers are starting to be way more prominent now that they're in cans, which I think was a smart move. But yeah, I just wanted to give them a shout.
Society alone.
Yeah. Dude, it's weird seeing Society cans around, huh?
I mean, I don't hate it. So.
I don't hate it either, but like, I'm also worried about what Society's going to look like here shortly because since they changed ownership and all that.
That's always a good point.
Yeah, and the head brewer was a big reason why they were so stringent on the kind of beers they made, which was like a lot of either like classic like San Diego West Coast IPAs or like traditional Belgians or like German styles, stuff like that. Like they did very traditional styles, mostly at that place. And so it's interesting to see like they just dropped a new beer. I forget what it is, but I might have to try it. But they're canning and everything. Like you could tell the direction of that brewery is changing, which is weird.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah,
nice.
But overall though, big fan of this Hop Slapped. Much like you know what? This is technically a pale ale, huh?
What color's the can? Because green. Oh no, I have seen it before. Jimbo's. They have a bunch in English there. Okay.
Yeah. A lot of places.
I just got an N95 mask the other day.
Hey, there you go. So I should be getting one here shortly. Shouts to girlfriend Karen's mom who works at a medical facility. She's like, motherfucker, you're not getting sick, so I'm getting both you and Karen N95 masks. I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
Down with it. I much prefer N64 masks, but you know, Zelda be busy and shit, so.
Yeah.
Well,
they say you.
Well, on that note, I'm gonna fucking Ocarina of Time travel my way out of this segment, and why don't we get into? That was a fucking terrible segue. Why don't we get into the? Oh, also, I love that OBS for the first time in a while. Your video is a fucking thin line on the thing, which is great. Yeah, it's definitely one of those times.
That's when I go, how many fingers am I holding up?
Yeah, well, no, nobody can even see. By the way, you guys, it's one, and you can guess which one. But that could very well be on my side or on your side, since everybody on the planet is using the internet right now. So we will just keep on
using Zoom.
On. Yeah, what the fuck? I like how everybody likes Zoom all of a sudden, but like Zoom is not the best meeting option online. Also, it's weird, and there's like a lot of weird privacy sketchiness with Zoom.
I saw some meme, some guy in his work, they had like a work conference call, but whoever had their camera set up, they had a green screen in the back, and it was that meme where it shows like all the dudes about to do bukkake on someone, and they're like all around the guy during a fucking conference call. It's like, dude, how the fuck is that a good idea?
It's
Like,
not.
I get
And
it.
also, that was probably photoshopped.
It had to have been, yeah. Because how would you even get because wouldn't the green screen feed have to be like their own feed plugged into the call or some
I
shit like that?
mean, there are a couple ways to do it, but yeah, no, they would have to be running software to do that.
Yeah, it's
So unless they just are using the same software they use for that in their spare time, which seems like a stretch, it seems like the same thing that dude's asshole is doing. Quite a stretch.
yeah.
So anyway, I like how your video just totally fucking tanked on me. Well, on that note, while I try and fix your video, why don't you let us know the MMA podcast you recommend people catch this week?
So, spoiler alert, I listened to 3 podcasts and they're all definitely catches for sure. So I guess the first one I was talking about, and I could talk about these periodically. Maybe I'll let you kind of go in and out with some other podcasts as well too, instead of just doing 3 in a row or all of mine in a row. I'll start with Submission Radio. We had
You know what? I didn't check this. This is the one they put out like a Saturday or Sunday, right?
yeah, they had John Morgan on as a guest. Really solid.
Shit, I had this on my list, but I don't think I got to.
I mean, a lot of podcasts, and they'll be talking about this for the next X amount of weeks, I guess, until April 18th, whatever the fuck happens then. Is it worth? Yeah, right. Is it worth trying to even make this thing happen? I mean, we both reiterated, no, don't even do the card, just postpone it.
Like, what are we doing?
Yeah. I know, what did they say? President Trump today had like a conference call with like all the commissioners of all the major sports or just sports in general.
Hilarious
Like,
that we pretend.
I would not have wanted to have been on that call just because of Dana White and like Vince McMahon.
Oh, fucking Vinnie Mac on the same day as WrestleMania on a conference call. You do not want to be in that room. It's going to be a lot of him Oh, good. Just the second I got your video fixed, it changed sizes on me. That's beautiful. No, Vinnie Mac absolutely is a terror today, considering he has WrestleMania, which is pre-taped, but it seems like they're doing live commentary, which I don't know if it's actually happening or if it's all pre-taped, but like it's all such a clusterfuck right now. So I cannot imagine him being pleasant. So I'm guessing it's a lot of like, fuck you, NFL. You're gonna eat my dick. WrestleMania.
So then they talk about, what does Tony have to gain from fighting Justin Gaethje this time? He has nothing. He needs to wait. Everyone needs to chill out. I think Gaethje even said he's not going to take any fights till he's in full camp anyway. Well, that's just that. I mean, you can even ask his head coach Trevor Whitman, and that's just how Justin Gaethje is. He doesn't take short notice fights. Well, he always wants a full camp.
Also, it's because he has a super smart coach in Trevor Whitman who doesn't let that shit fly. You know.
They said Tony Ferguson and Francis Ngannou are the only fighters right now who want to fight. Maybe they should fight each other. Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Pay-per-view by expectations. That's probably the only reason. They said it's the only reason why Dana wants to keep this thing going and not just kill it off at this point. He just wants money. Where would the fight happen? This is all theoretical. They said Florida, if they were to guess. I mean, that's a good guess considering Florida doesn't really give a fuck about the whole COVID.
Yes, and they didn't give a fuck. They're still, well, I mean, unless they can convince them that the UFC is a church.
Thank you. Yeah, I saw that thing today. That was it's actually not even funny. It's just sad.
I would argue it's not funny, but it sure as fuck is parody. Like, man, Florida just can't help but act like fucking idiots all the time. And
it's like, oh, they're a business, so tax them. Good luck.
Yeah, no, that's my favorite part too. It's very comforting that even in bad times, Florida still.
Oh, if you want to laugh, go to Chris D'Elia's page.
He's been killing it this week.
That fucking weirdo, creepy looking pastor guy and his hype man. He's just like, and COVID, I demand the Lord above to strike you down, COVID. And he has like this fucking hype man who's like this with his eyes closed, just going like this. And I remember Chris Lee is like, oh, it's like the guy's in an elevator and he can't figure out what button he wants to press or some shit.
An elevator?
Yeah. I was just like, God damn it. And it's, those kind of people are the fucking worst right now.
You mean religious people?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's just go there.
They're definitely not well, actually, no, MMA fans are the worst right now.
I mean, there's some
MMA
great
fans.
people out there who are religious. It's just the people out there that still need your money are pieces of shit.
Yeah, and there's great people who are MMA fans, but they're sure not the ones talking on Twitter most of the time, huh?
Yeah.
Holy fuck. I love the slow and very sad realization that so many momos are having about what the fuck is going to happen with 249. Like, hey, you guys remember 2 weeks ago when no one was freaking out, really?
I just saw
We
today
still
also.
have 2 weeks till 249.
I saw Trump was like, I think the NFL could definitely still start on time in September. It's like, dude, do you realize even if it did, all it takes is one player to have corona and the whole season's canceled.
Well, yes,
or
but
personnel,
yes,
or coach, or
yeah, literally any stadium
essentially.
worker. Yeah,
like look what happened to the NBA. I mean, granted, it was early before people realized how well, at least until the United States.
A fucking mascot test positive, and you have to shut the shit down.
Yeah, so
it's very. And also, we all know cheerleaders notoriously the healthiest and least diseased people on the planet.
Yeah. It's proven. It's science.
Yeah, no, that's straight facts. I learned that from Bill Nye, and he's the science guy.
Yeah, dude, he's got all the degrees, all the PhDs.
Yeah, Bill Nye's got the PhDs, and he be giving them out to ladies, you know what I'm saying? That PhD. Anyway, on that note, why don't I keep on moving on? Yeah, no, that sounds like a really good episode of Submission Radio. I definitely need to check it out. It was on my list. I just never got around to it, which I'm bummed out about. So I may have to do that. Let's see. I guess I have a 2-part. No, I don't. I have a 1-part catch for this week. The first of my catches is Coffee Talk for April 4th, 2020. This is the show on MMA fighting hosted by Esther Lynn and Casey Leiden. And they had historian and former MMA writer and analyst Pat Wyman on, which it's a lot of fun. I should specify, this is an episode that if you guys are not interested in hearing discussions about coronavirus and that kind of stuff, it's definitely not one you want to listen to. Unless you're just interested in hearing like people talk about workouts for the first half. Because a lot of the first half of the show is Pat Wyman and Casey both being like, fuck, the gym is closed. How we keep these gains, bro. It's a lot of that. A lot of dog talk in the first segment, which is fun. It's like, I don't know, I miss Pat Wyman on stuff. If you guys don't know, Pat Wyman, of course, former host of the Heavy Hands podcast, an all-around dope motherfucker. And PhD, Dr. Pat Wyman, I should say, because he has a PhD in history. Actually, specifically with... I don't want to misquote what his actual... like, a lot of his degree has to do with people dealing with, like, daily life and stuff like that throughout the ends of societies. For lack of a better description. And what's really interesting about this is the last half of this podcast where they start getting into stuff like germ theory and kind of comparing the current situation with coronavirus to the 1918 Spanish flu.
Yep.
A great thing that more people should know about, the reason why it was called the Spanish flu in 1918 is because that was happening during wartime, during World War I. And at the time, during World War I, the Spanish media was the least suppressed because they were not involved in a lot of conflicts. So there was not an intentional media push to not focus on it. Which is a weird comparison to nowadays, where you're like, some countries seem very open to talking about how the problem with coronavirus, and some countries seem very not open to it. And it's weird which countries are doing. Like, Canada seems to have a very rational and responsible reaction to shit. And they seem to be addressing shit like adults. And
if you ask a certain country right now, they'll tell you that they have 0 remaining cases.
That could be a lot of countries. Some of which
Spoiler
are
alert, it's China.
Yeah, well, okay. as we've discussed on this podcast, Winnie the Pooh is over there fucking coronavirus and honeypots and just passing everything out. So now that I've just officially dunked on China again, I mean, China, to be fair, like to clarify, Chinese people are great. Chinese government is a big fucking problem. Yeah. It's always been a big problem. But you could say the same thing about our country, to be absolutely fair. Or the UK at this point. Because holy shit, are people handling things like children. But it's just really interesting hearing with some of the one-to-one comparisons that Pat Wyman did during this episode. He talks about how back during the 1918 pandemic, or specifically, well, I guess Spanish flu was technically a pandemic, but the events, there was a lot of events canceled at the time, and one of the cities to have the worst death toll from it was Philadelphia, where they had 100,000, they had hundreds of thousands of deaths because they just didn't shut anything down. And so, like, there's articles you can find of mass graves found in Philadelphia at a certain point, just like while digging shit up, which they later figured out, oh, these are all the people that they buried off the record from that flu, which is absolutely crazy. It's just really interesting hearing the discussion about it. They talk about how even like during the Black Plague and stuff, they would shut down sporting events and like big events. Which, like, yo, if you can't joust because of a plague, how the fuck you gonna have two dudes or two women, two people sweat on each other and be in a fucking fist fight? I don't know. Seems irresponsible, but what do I know? I'm just a drunk kid in San Diego watching this from afar. But yeah, it's really interesting seeing kind of like I've said on this show in the past, like I'll say on this show multiple times, it feels like over the next couple of weeks, you don't have to be smart, you just have to listen to smart people. And Pat Wyman is one of those people. So I thought it was really interesting hearing his take on that, and I think it's something that for people interested in learning more and just kind of, I feel like, I mean, this should be absolute common sense, but you can learn a lot from history. That's why it's there. If you ignore history, you're doomed to repeat it, as just about every fucking scholar in all of history has ever said. And yeah, I'm just hoping one of these days we actually do that in this sport, instead of just constantly making the same mistakes over and over again and expecting things to be different. Shouts to Dana White. So
isn't that the definition of insanity?
Yeah, or the UFC's business plan. It's really kind of a toss-up. But yeah, it's just interesting hearing about it. Pat also talks about like why the UFC could be continuing to put on cards, whether it's just Dana's ego, whether it's the fact the UFC, which we talked about last week when he was on Luke Thomas's show, whether it's just the fact that this is what the UFC does, is they treat that business like essentially an expense account and pull out money whenever they need it, which they just did very recently, pull out all the money, and now which also you got to wonder, Endeavor has a lot of connections, and there's a lot of senators and financial analysts who pulled out a whole lot of money out of the stock market recently. If Endeavor did think things were going to start tanking, and then you pay off everybody with the profits, you don't lose as much of the profits, right? So, yeah, I don't know. Frustrating and interesting things going on, and I really appreciate people like Pat Wyman and another analyst who everybody's mad at, who will come up later, on just speaking out publicly against fucking, like, I'm not going to say, like, atrocities against mankind, but, like, we're not getting far away. Like, yeah. And also, have you heard the rumors or people suggest that, oh, hey, you know where we could have fights is Chechnya, because they said they're cool with it. You're like, oh, we're just officially kicking it with Ramzan, huh? That's our plan, is to just kick it with Ramzan Kadyrov. Like, yo,
it's all upsetting.
Oh my god, it's like it's not just upsetting, it's just like morally reprehensible on so many levels. So, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's why, like I said, you just have to listen to smart people, and Pat Wyman, with the degree in the fall of civilizations, is by definition smart people. So highly recommend checking out Coffee Talk from April 4th. Let's see. So, and I promise that I also have a catch that is not nearly as dark and depressing, although parts of it are depressing on a different level. So, Chris, you said you had another catch?
Yeah, this is also a new one. I wanted to get a new one in.
Nice.
Yeah, this is new for me at least. It's called the Die Hard MMA podcast with
Find it on
Clint.
listen notes?
Yes, yeah, that's where I found it. With Clint McLean. I was like, that's probably why it's called Die Hard MMA Podcast.
Oh, that's a great name, too. Just
There
as
you go.
like a person, that's a good name to have.
Yeah, Clint McLean. He starts off with listing. He's like, for those, since the UFC's probably not announcing it during these times, here's a list of. He does a bigger list. A list of fighters who've been laid off by the UFC during this whole pandemic.
A lot, dude.
Yeah, Tanya Evinger. I just tried noting down some of John Hyung Ma, Chance Rencounter, which he said that's a surprise. I agree. I think he was like on a good little streak. Chance Rencounter.
Yeah, wait, did he win his last? I think he lost his last fight, but won the first two before that.
Yeah, I think he won his first 3 fights in the UFC and lost his last one. And he said Mirbek Taisimov was released.
That's an insane one, also.
Yeah. There's a couple other ones I recognize too. Like the fuck. So.
Yeah, Rencounter lost one fight to Lyman Good, and his wins are over Ismail Nardiev and Kyle Stewart. His only other loss in the UFC is to Bilal Muhammad. Like, if your 2 losses in your first 4 fights in the UFC are Bilal Muhammad and Lyman Good, Jesus Christ.
That reminds me too. I can't remember how I got there, but I saw there's something with Habib and Tony being put off for now, whatever, right? And then someone said who could step up to Tony, and then I saw Bilal Muhammad commented on something, making fun of someone, and then someone said Tony would eat you alive, and he said not a chance. I have 170, whatever, but it's that's interesting. How would Bilal? I think Tony beats him anyway, but
I think
not
so
disrespect
too.
Bilal, not disrespect Bilal Muhammad. He's good at wrestling.
Banger of a fight though. Bilal is a bad motherfucker, and that dude pushes a pace and has very decent he's very strong boxer brawler with very decent takedown defense.
So the guy Clint McLean, he's like, oh yeah, it took a worldwide pandemic to shut down Habib versus Tony fight. We obviously no one saw this pandemic happening, but it's there's truly cursed, something we've heard before. We're gonna be hearing this for the next couple of weeks. He says he's going stir crazy because there's no hockey and other sports too. What's the deal with the main event, slot now at this point? Yada yada. He said he would love to see Woodley versus Covington if they could pull that off. The whole Gaethje thing won in a full camp. We've heard that from other podcasts. He says Tony's the clear number 1 guy. The fight does need to happen, just not right now. He says he would try to do Gaethje versus McGregor. It's when the fuck are you going to do that? That was already being discussed. It's supposed to be for July, but at this point, who knows what the fuck's going to happen?
And also, just because it was being discussed for July
doesn't mean anything was signed. Yeah,
I don't
know.
And also, I honestly think right now, which I think I don't know if I mentioned it on our full show last week. I know I mentioned it on one of the daily YouTube videos I've been doing on just what I'm listening to. I'm pretty convinced they're offering people fights just to extend their contract at this point.
Yeah.
Because, if the UFC has to offer people 3 fights a year, if they offer you a fight card and they know that fight card's not going to happen, that still counts as offering you a fight for the year. So now they only have to offer you 2 more. And so I'm worried that they're just using this downtime as an excuse to offer people fights to extend contracts when they know shit isn't going to happen. Because if you notice, how many fight offers went out for that San Diego card? It was a fuckload.
Yeah, a good amount.
That was as recent as, last week when, Dom Cruz and Aljo Sterling and Corey Sandhagen were all still talking about, rumors of fights that were happening on that card, which the California State Athletic Commission put the kibosh on Thursday, which actually when our commentary episode for the first UFC San Diego card went out, which was... I'll call it a coincidence, but yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunate that we're not getting a UFC San Diego. But good news is, spoiler alert, next week we're probably going to be doing a commentary track for the second ever UFC San Diego card, which I don't remember what it was.
Nor do I, yeah.
I know the first one is the Miramar card that we did. The most recent one is the one we went to. I don't remember what the second one was. And then Here's the question. After that, we might have to just start doing the Strikeforce and Bellator events down here.
I'm just looking at all these updates. It's just like it's all just a mess. It's like Tyron Woodley, stop saying yes, you're down to fight. Everyone's down to. Everyone wants to get on that card. Like, dude, there's no fucking location.
Well, that's Malky Kawa, though.
Yeah,
Who's
no, I
also,
figured. It's just
like
annoying,
I'm saying,
dude. I'm just tired of seeing this bullshit. It's like none of these fights are gonna fucking happen. It's just almost like, not to say I'm not in the mood to do this, but it's just like, come on, man.
Well,
like,
and but
talk
part of the
about it,
problem
but
is like Malky is out here bragging like my client accepted, where
it's just dick measuring contest at this point. People
not
being
just that, but like literally, Malky is out there bragging that he might have fucked over his client if that extended his contract when he clearly wasn't going to be able to fight.
Yeah.
Like, I'm very, very, very curious to see if that's the UFC's play, and we're going to find out in the next week or two if they're still offering fights on cards in July and June. Because the kibosh is already on May. They can't announce fights for May. Like, I don't think they can do that. So, but if they're, like, offering people fights in June, that's when everybody needs to start taking a hard fucking look in the mirror and being like, what are we doing and why are they continuing to offer fights on cards they know they can't put on? So, it's just something I'm worried about because the talk is still out there. It seems like managers are still pushing these conversations when if managers were good managers, they would be saying, hey, we don't accept shit until you tell us you have a venue booked, the stage is already cleared, that it's cool, and we'll go from there. So, I'm worried. I'm worried fighters are going to get super fucked over from greedy managers, hoping desperately to get a paycheck, because if they don't for the next year off this client, then what are they doing, you know? And also, you got to realize managers right now have zero income.
Yeah, good point.
Like, across everything they're doing. So they are more desperate than the fighters, probably. Unless they're real estate fucking momos, and then they're probably fucking over people who rent from them, which probably someone should look into right now. But that's besides the point. Anyway, sorry, I got us way off track. Where were we?
Fuck. I was kind of getting mad. I'm still irritated just about the whole news about any of this. Like, I know I'm paying attention to it, but I'm just getting frustrated at this point. Because it's just ignorant to think that anything is going to happen at this point.
Well, and it's just frustrating, that like...
Even if Dana pulls it off and has a fight, like, okay, I don't know.
I mean, they're not going to. What hospital are they taking people to after the fight?
Yeah.
What ambulances and doctors can they get on hand? Like, any doctor that does a UFC event right now is probably breaking Hippocratic Oath just by participating, right? Or if they're not, like, they're at least severely compromised. And, like, you can do stitches backstage, I guess, but, like, you can't do medical procedures. And you can't just be taking people into hospitals during a pandemic. Healthy people, assumedly, outside of injuries. So, it's reprehensible. All this shit is reprehensible. That it's even a conversation at this point. It's rough. Let's see. So, do you have any other notes on that Die Hard MMA show? It sounds pretty interesting.
No, not any more notes. I liked it. The guy's charismatic. He makes I should probably go back and listen to some stuff where it's not just about this bullshit going on. But
right, it's hard to listen to new shows during this stuff.
I'm definitely gonna jot them down those for future listening for sure. I like it. So
cool, man. I'm gonna have to add that to my list to give a listen to. Let's see. I have one other podcast that was a catch for me this week. It was MMA Stories with, which is of course the show on Between Rounds with Jeremy Horn and Monty Cox, where they discussed negotiating with Dana White. Oh boy, is there some fucking crazy information in this episode. It should all be taken with a grain of salt because this is a manager talking about the amounts that they got from the UFC or negotiations that they had with the UFC. And since it's a one-sided conversation, you can only take one side of that conversation. However, kind of feel like Monty Cox is you can kind of tell when he's spinning stuff or when it seems like, nah, that's probably the conversation he had. And some of the conversations he talks about with him and Joe Silva and Dana White are insane. Off the top, there's some talk about the shows they're watching, which I appreciate everybody doing right now. Everybody's kind of stealing our format, to be honest. Stuff like, yo, what's a catch and a can't miss fucking show right now on Netflix?
It's all come full circle, right?
Yeah, we're
finally... Is this when we get all of our new listeners and all that, right?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we're going to get all the new listeners for us talking about podcasts that talk about a sport that doesn't exist anymore. Oh, no, wait, it totally exists, and it's happening on April 18th. What am I talking about? There's some really interesting conversations on here. They talk about how Tim Sylvia always seemed like he wanted to be like Matt Hughes, but he just took all the mean parts and didn't do all the nice things that Matt did, which is hilarious. And then there's a lot of talk about just what Monty's negotiations with Joe and Dana were like. He said they offered Jake Ellenberger 28-28 for a title shot when he was coming off the win over Jake Shields, and then after negotiations, Monty was able to get him 73-73, which is kind of like an insane indictment on how those offers were being given out at the time. They talk about Jens Pulver being fucked over in like the most egregious way possible. So Jens Pulver was the UFC lightweight champion, I believe, or at least he was under UFC contract prior to Zuffa taking over. So he was under an SEG contract when they used to own the UFC prior to Zuffa and prior to Dana and the Fertitta brothers, essentially. Well, I should say the Fertitta brothers and then their lackey Dana. And so Jens was stuck on and he was getting paid 11-11 as the champ.
Oh my god!
So when he fought BJ Penn, Jens got paid $11,000 to show and $11,000 to win against BJ Penn. Who got $20,000 to show and $20,000 to win. So after winning that fight, Jens was like, "Hey, I want," or I think it was, yeah. So it was after that. They tried to get at least 20-20, which is what his opponent BJ made. They're like, nah, we're not going to do that. We'll give you 13-13. They're like, you were giving BJ 20-20. We're getting 11-11 on an old contract. And they're like, no, we have this clause that even though it's past the expiration date, we're just going to stick with that. So you can get 13-13 and fight one more time, or you can leave. So that's why Jens Pulver went to Japan, which, holy fuck, like, giving somebody 11-11 to fight BJ Penn is so egregious. And I get that was when they were still in hard times, daddy, and fuck, hard times, daddy, that's the road style. But, yeah, no, it's absolutely egregious, and it's fucking, it's upsetting. Monty also talks about the different times Dana tried to blackball him just like over and over and over again, where if you've all followed Dana and Monty's discussions in the media back and forth, that's been a long time feud where Dana's just always shitting on Monty Cox for saying he doesn't want any fights to happen, which, by the way, whenever the UFC says so-and-so doesn't want the fight, it just means they want to get paid correctly. Shots to Cyborg. But, just really interesting discussion. Monty also talks about getting some yellow cards overturned in Japan, which I didn't know was a thing. He said it mostly happened in rings, where afterwards he would appeal and, like, go try and fight yellow cards. Because if you don't know, yellow cards in Japan, in rings and in Pride, if you got a yellow card from the referee, which was generally for, like, stalling, but very quickly Japan learned, if we just start giving these out, we save money. So, getting those overturned is kind of a crazy idea, especially in Japan. So, I definitely wanted to give those a shout out since I enjoyed them quite a bit. And yeah, Monty Cox, that show on Between Rounds is real fucking good. Let's see, Chris, you said you had one more catch for this week, right?
Yeah, Severe MMA was solid.
Yeah, it was. Episode, let's see, I got it right here. It is episode 254.
Yeah, Sean basically discussed, like, sorry, I'm trying not to be. It's just because it's just reiterating
Wait,
every
was this the
fucking
one from
goddamn.
today or the one from last week?
Might have been an old one actually.
It's probably the one from last week, which is 254. They put one out like today, like a couple hours before we started, but I think it's 254. If you talk about it, I'll tell you which one it is.
Okay, it says 255. I'm looking
Okay,
up
it
here
was
on SoundCloud.
255 then. So I listened to 254, which was also pretty good. But what did they talk about this week?
So just where Habib's at right now, still in Russia, I believe. Evidently, that whole situation. He says it's really scary how a lot of people don't understand how serious this whole pandemic is right now, and they're just like, I just want my fights. It's like, well, yeah, sports deprived individuals, more or less, right? Even then, though,
Also,
at least have some sense of fucking just awareness.
yeah, I would say
The fuck is
probably
going on?
brain
Like, I
cell
wish there was.
deprived
I wish I
individuals.
could go to a Padre game like this weekend or some shit. You know, I don't. I don't work Sundays. You know, if it's back to normal, I would fucking go to a game on
I wish
Sundays.
I could go to a bar a lot,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
can't. So I'm drinking at home
Uh,
like an adult. So you know what we really have decided? Any fan that really wants to talk shit needs to start a YouTube series where they're fighting in their house, and then we can tell how much you like MMA.
yeah. Uh, he brings up really good points about how it would go down if Tony and Habib actually fought, and talks about it's like, okay, well, if they're fighting, you talk about them traveling. How many people are around them traveling? They go through the TSA or whatever airport security you have going on. How many other people are you touching? How many machines are you touching? Okay, now you're actually at the fight. Besides just dealing with the hotel and hotel service bringing you food or giving you services, are you coming into contact with someone still? Are you wearing the proper mask and, you know, protective gear, COVID gear, right? Like, okay, say the fight actually happens, then you're on fight day. There's the weigh-ins. Okay, now you have the cut man, putting Vaseline on the fighters. They're touching them. So it's like all these different things you're coming into contact with. You're in different environments. How the fuck would you be able to ensure that everyone's, testing negative? You have to literally and this is all just in a short amount of time. There's just no way it would work. Like, that's just
Well, not just that. Like, how do you only have 10 people in the room?
yeah.
Because the talk is right now it's in the U.S. That's from everything we're hearing. It's somewhere in the U.S., which I still argue there's only one place to hold it, and it's The Rock. But
Reassured. No, good spread.
yeah, no, 100%. But like, no, you can't do it because you need two fighters. You need a referee. Are we doing no cornermen? Say we do no cornermen. You still need athletic commission members in there to separate people. That's two more.
3 judges.
You say you do the 3 judges remotely. You still need another commission member to put on Vaseline because it can't be the same commission member that's the ref. And so that is 7 people, and that's not including corners. That's not including cameramen, which need to be in the room. That's not including anybody else. So like, you would have to essentially have no corners, no judges in the location, and it's going to be like a 1 or 2 camera shoot. And there can be no Dana White. There can be no. It's not practical, or I would argue even possible to pull off legally. And then if you're not pulling it off legally, what the fuck are we doing? Like, hey, I love illegal fights as much as the next guy. I watch me some street beefs. I get it. Hey, we're going to watch a terrible movie about crime fights called Lockdown later, probably. But, like, what are we doing, yo? Like, I get it. Endeavor is desperate for money. I get it. Dana White wants to pull his dick out and be the only game in town. Vinnie Mac style. I get it. Here's a question, Chris. Would Dana White be going forward if Vince McMahon wasn't?
Probably not.
That's a
Well,
weird thing, right?
because
his
Sean
entire
also
business
talked about
model
TV
is-
deals too,
Yeah.
and that's being a good point of.
But that's why Vince McMahon's going forward with stuff as TV deals. Because he's still putting on Raw and SmackDown every week because they have obligations to ESPN. Or not ESPN, Fox.
Definitely not ESPN.
I think it's Fox.
I think it's Fox.
Which, by the way, Fox on their website right now says Tony Ferguson's fighting McGregor at 249.
Oh, I gotta check this out. This
I don't
sounds
know
hilarious.
why the fuck Fox has that on their website, but like,
What is it?
also,
Are you on Fox Sports?
I have no idea. I just saw multiple people tweet out a screenshot of that. Google Fox Sports.
I
249.
almost guarantee you that was like a Connor Stan fan page. I swear to God, because I saw that same image.
I bet it's just Fox being incompetent as shit and absolutely trying to get clicks. But yeah, frustrating all around. Anyway, while you're looking that up, I have a couple. So I will say, for the time being, I'm not going to do skips. Anybody putting out content, I appreciate you putting out content. And even if you have terrible technical problems, or if, like in the podcast that was going to be my skip, you have terrible technical problems, and you decide to basically stand for Ali and Malky the entire time. So being like, oh, but it's a good thing that Ali and Malky get into confrontations, and it's a good thing. They're like a heel pro wrestling manager. They're like the Suge Knight of managers. You're like, yo, that's a good comparison? Is that what you're saying? It's a terrible manager. Suge Knight's a bad manager. So, yeah, that was frustrating. And also, that same podcast had a horrible stadium-like echo on one of their hosts because he's picking up on both mics. I'm not going to say the name of it, though, because I like the dudes who do it. And also, I want people to keep putting out content. So that's why I'm not going to have a skip. But, like, if you were to guess which MMA show has two brothers who host it, and they're located in Las Vegas, and they're not able to record out of the casino that they normally record out of, and they are talking about managers who they are very friendly with, I bet you could guess who I'm talking about. But I'm not going to say it's a skip this week.
This is hilarious. This photo, it says it's in Brooklyn, New York at the Barclays Center.
It still says it's in Brooklyn, too. It's the best.
Yeah, let me see. Yeah, even apparently John Kavanaugh just said no chance, no shit. Like,
yeah, no, you can't fly into Brooklyn right now, can you? Or if you do, you definitely can't, like. Also, why? Yeah. The fucking Barclays Center. I like how they're like, okay, you guys, let's be fair. What if we put them where the Knicks play? I mean, what if we put them where the Nets play? Because nobody gives a fuck about the Nets. So, like, what if they all just get the Ronas and then we don't care?
I mean, that's literally in Brooklyn, though. They're the Brooklyn Nets.
I know. Well, they play at the Barclays Center, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is like, they're like, wait, listen, we can't put them at MSG because important people go to MSG, but no one important goes to the Barclays Center, so let's put it at the Barclays Center.
No, but wasn't this fight originally supposed to be in Brooklyn? That's the thing.
It? I thought it was supposed to.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. You're
no,
right.
This is the thing. That's why I was like, that's my point. Like, they never
MSG.
changed the location on the Fox website. It's fucking hilarious.
But they changed.
Like, no, yeah, this fight was in Brooklyn. That's why you and I, months ago, were concerned. Like, oh, New York State Athletic Commission fight. Great.
I remembered it was in New York. I figured you put that.
Yeah, no, it was supposed to be at the Barclays Center. The main fucking event, Habib versus Tony.
It's not a good look at all. At all. Let us see.
Yeah, and Ireland's on fucking lockdown anyway, so good luck.
Yeah, also, and well, I was gonna say, and also Connor's been tweeting about how we all need to stay inside, except clearly that was Connor's PR team because when it got to drinking hour, Connor got control of his account again and starts talking about how fucking he'll fight everybody and Habib's ducking Tony, obviously. What a fucking Momo. Anyway, so I have a couple Can't Miss episodes for this week. And they are all... Here, I'll get to the fun ones first. Heavy Hands. Both the Heavy Hands Patreon bonus episode, which was they did a commentary track for the main card of UFC 189. It's so good. Excuse me. It sounds like they recorded it at the end of March. But it's just really good, like technical breakdowns, the cards, on top of just kind of, it's interesting hearing them not only give their takes on stuff, but also just like dunk on how terrible fucking Dana is during all this shit, and just kind of have like it feels like if if Zayn wasn't on the MMA Vivisection and they were watching a card that wasn't the most brutal thing of all time. Also, 189, of course, being one of the best cards ever with Brad Pickett versus Thomas Almeida, Gunnar Nelson versus Brendan Thatch, Robbie Lawler versus Rory McDonald,
Bermudez and Stevens.
Yeah, Bermudez and Jeremy Stevens were one of the craziest fights of all time, and then of course Conor and Mendez.
Yeah.
So, really good card, and I just really, like, if you ever want to get a really good grasp on what people look for on the technical side while watching fights, Phil and Connor do a really, really good job of that on that episode. And similarly, they do a really good job of it on Heavy Hands, episode 310, where they did an episode, I would call it a counter episode to their show with Zane Simon, the MMA Depressed Us. They did an episode 310 called MMA Impressed Us. And yeah, it's really good. Also, shouts to Connor being like, week 3 of quarantine, folks. There's no fights. What is this show, Phil? What are we doing? So they decided to go back and watch some of their favorite fights that were like kind of pivotal bouts in MMA history that kind of changed the landscape. So, for example, they did Mark Coleman versus Maurice Smith, a commentary for that. They did a commentary for Rampage versus Chuck 1, which is the one in Pride where Dana White is just slowly losing his mind more and more as it goes on. Because Dana clearly has so much money on Chuck and is slowly realizing. He's like, well, our game plan with Chuck is to go in there and throw leg kicks and work behind a jab. And you're like, what fucking Chuck Liddell fights have you ever seen, Dana White? Because he doesn't do any of those things. And then lastly, they watched Fedor versus Big Nog, which is, of course, legendary. So, again, just really, really interesting technical takes, and it's just they're a lot of fun to listen to. They're also very funny. So, can't recommend those highly enough. Also, it's hilarious that they did the thing I always do, where I always mix up the Mark Coleman versus Maurice Smith fight with the Mark Coleman versus. I was going to say Pete Carroll. I was going to say Pete Sell, but it's Pete Williams, I believe, that hit him with the head kick. I knew immediately it wasn't. They talked about like, oh, everybody knows the end of this fight because it's a very classic GIF. And I was like, I don't remember the end of this fight and immediately I was like, oh, I think they're thinking of the Pete Smith fight or the Pete Williams fight, which I do remember specifically because Pete Williams was wearing shoes when he head kicks Mark Coleman. And it's like one of the most brutal head kicks where Mark Coleman just completely gassed, leans to the left, and just gets blasted with the cleanest head kick of all time while Pete Williams is wearing fucking wrestling boots. And it's quite a thing. So, yeah, highly recommend those.
Nice. I just saw on I almost forgot this guy got signed to the UFC. Ryzen bantamweight champ Manel Cape.
Manel Cape.
Yeah, he just challenged Cody Garbrandt. He's like, I'd love to be your first fight at 125.
I got Manel Cape. Manel Cape's a fucking hard hitter, and he's. I mean, if you guys remember, he fucked up a lot of big names, like
like Ian McCall, right?
Ian McCall is the best. I mean, that was kind of a crazy fight because Ian literally split open his eyebrow on the ropes.
Yeah,
because they're plastic ropes with LEDs in them. And so he actually literally sliced his eye open on that. But Manel Cape also then went on to fuck up a lot of big names in Ryzen. And so, yeah, that's a big deal. I'm excited for him to come over. I'm a little worried I'm curious to see how much his game changes when he comes to the UFC. He's another dude who reminded me a lot of Manel Cape, just like a big explosive banger who got into fucking slobber knockers all the time and just put heat on dudes. Is Mark Diakese. But like Mark Diakese's game took some adjusting once he got to the UFC outside of like the first fight or two, once he started hitting higher level competition. And you can see that Mark Diakese also really started putting together a more well-rounded game, working in more low kicks, he's not relying on jumping guillotine as much. And I wonder how much of that's going to be a similar trajectory from Manel Cape. I think it'll be interesting for sure. Let's see. Okay, so then my last, because you said you didn't have any can't misses, right?
No, I just had these 3. I will be right back, by the way.
Sure, go ahead while I get into this. My can't miss for this episode, my other one is the Luke Thomas live chat, episode 27. I get it that people don't like the conversations Luke Thomas is having right now. I get it. I understand why. I guess I get the idea that people don't like constantly hearing about depressing things. But like, if things are depressing, it's important to hear about it. Like, a lot of this talk about how people are complaining, like, I've heard a lot of podcasts this week say, I don't want to just dwell on coronavirus the entire episode. Which, like, I get in theory, but also it's super important to talk about the times in which you're recording something. Whether it be fucking a podcast about a fight, whether it be you talking about a book you read, or whether it be a book you wrote. Like, the idea that, like, every piece of great literature throughout history that it was talking about its current time period wouldn't exist if we all followed that method. Like, Anne Frank would still be sitting in a fucking closet until she died, and no one would know about it unless she was writing a book about the time she lived in. I think it's important to write and talk about the times you're living in. And I think it also it gives better context for the way you're approaching things and the feelings you have about it. So it's frustrating for me to constantly hear that on so many shows where you're like, listen, because it seems like it's a response to very uninformed audience, and it's an audience that clearly isn't interested in hearing about anything other than what makes them feel good, and that's a losing battle always. So I think it's interesting, at least, that that's a thing that hosts keep saying in shows, and it makes me feel weird. And that's why I've been appreciating so much of Luke Thomas's content. Luke Thomas live chat, episode 27. Luke is the one person in MMA media outside of, I would say, Trent Reinsmith and a couple other prominent media figures. I mean, if I went through all of them, this would take forever, but it's refreshing to hear people just quoting scientists and, like, just telling people, like, Casey Leiden is another great example of someone who's just like, hey, maybe don't, he's just telling people, like, hey, or Bisping, another great example, outwardly telling people with bad opinions on the internet, like, hey, maybe you should rethink having this bad opinion, because it's not going to age well. And that's why I appreciate the conversation that Luke Thomas is having, because he's not shying away from the uncomfortable conversations. And yeah. Yeah.
Don't mean to interrupt. Didn't realize I've been recording, but not on my microphone.
Oh,
great!
Good to
this
know.
Entire time.
Well, then the first chunk of this might be the YouTube audio, which, to be fair, Chris, great reminder. I learned this week that Connor Rebush just records Phil McKenzie's audio off his desktop, which is not the way you should be recording audio if you're doing a podcast. Because that's why Phil McKenzie always sounds like he's in a tunnel, is because it's Connor Rebush recording the Skype audio, not Phil McKenzie recording the audio locally and sending it to him.
Luckily, like our phone call, you're hearing my regular microphone, my USB mic. But yeah, my Audacity audio is definitely my MacBook Pro microphone.
Well, it
so,
sounds like
good.
It sounds like y'all are gonna get the sweet dulcet tones of YouTube audio, which to be fair is not too bad nowadays, considering how our setup works. So.
I'll make sure that's fixed when we do the movie commentary, so I don't sound like complete shit.
Good call. Well, good thing we did that, because, well, actually, I guess it doesn't matter, because I almost fucked up my Audacity recording before we started this, too. So, also, if you guys are recording a podcast out there, just use Audacity. You can use it on Mac or PC. AUDACITY. Just do it. It's way better than GarageBand.
And if you're doing it on Mac, you'll need to just Google Audacity MacBook terminal code. You need to paste a application code in terminal on Mac, and it automatically boots. It's easy as shit. It just literally boots it up. It's fine. It works great.
Yeah, it's just forcing it to work in a 32-bit environment, right?
Yeah, that's literally all it is. Because the latest operating system software that they I think it's called like Catalina, whatever the fuck they call it. It, for some reason, I don't know if it was a fuck up on their part. But
no, it's not a fuck up. They're forcing you to use 64-bit applications because they're cunts.
Well, that checks out.
But yeah, shocking. Apple is forcing you to use the things they prefer because, spoiler alert, it makes it easier for them to make money off of the extensions they can sell you. But anyway, so Chris, one thing I did mention, and I'm not sure if you've been hearing this a lot. Have you been hearing a lot of podcasts say, "I don't want to talk about coronavirus this whole time," or "I don't want to just focus on coronavirus. I want to talk about other things." You've been hearing that a lot?
At least not the ones I've been listening to, but that wouldn't surprise me.
You've been listening to good ones. Because, like I was talking about just while you were gone, it really frustrates me to hear that because...
Oh, wait. Oh, I know why I've been skipping this podcast, and I will fucking throw shade. I don't go fuck.
Yeah, I'm curious.
UFC Unfiltered? Because every time I saw a preview for them, they had random fucking people on there, and it's like, today we're going to talk about this, and that. And I was just like they had fighters on too, but it's like, I don't know. So you go ahead and let me know.
Well, no, I just find it super weird. Like, in no other time in history have we ever, as a society, just decided, like, or at least not that I can remember, that we're like, we don't like people record keeping. Like, we don't like people basically writing about the times we're in. We just want to hear about good things that are happening during bad times. And, like, if you're just putting out content about bad things that are happening, then, like, what you're not really doing a service. Like, all great literature wouldn't exist if that... All great historical literature wouldn't exist if that was the case. Like, Anne Frank would just be sitting in a fucking attic by herself, waiting to die.
Didn't you know... Dude, that her whole story's a hoax. She wrote it... could she write in a ballpoint pen? It didn't exist then, bro.
That's true. And not just that, though. Also... Just because she was blind, like I don't know how blind and deaf. I don't know how the Nazis didn't hear her.
Wait, what?
It's a really good Bert Kreischer bit, but
yeah.
It was either Bert Kreischer. No, it was definitely Bert Kreischer. It definitely wasn't Ari. I think I've heard Ari tell it though, but yeah, it's a good bit. But anyway, my point is, it's like all great literature, all great non-fiction literature throughout history, the majority of it is about talking about bad times people are living in. And for us to just not do that during a bad time people are living in is a crazy thing to ask of people. And it's genuinely, I would argue, going to hurt the literature and the quality of content people are putting out during something like this. Right? It's just disingenuous. Yeah. Like, if people are out just talking about what fights are going to happen next, like, they're stalling because they have nothing else to talk about, right?
Yeah. I mean, if anything, go back, talk about old cards you watched again, or I don't know.
There's a million...
Don't act like everything's fine.
Exactly. Because it's
like, ignorance is bliss, but not in this fucking case.
It's also just terrifying. Like, when an outlet you listen to, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just gonna say it. MMA Junkie Radio, Gorgeous George and Goes right now are just acting like the world isn't falling apart, except for when they mention that they're both recording from home and can't go to the Vegas casinos. But there's just a lot of like, oh, we're just gonna talk about what fights we want to see on 249, and we're just gonna talk about how, oh well, Malky and Ali, you know, like, they're like the fucking, you know, they're like the Don... Malky's like the Don King of MMA. He's like that kind of manager. Like, to just be having those conversations right now is absolutely not only insane to me, but ruins all credibility and interest I have in anything you have to say. And it's really frustrating for me. I was trying so hard not to say that name of that show right now, but... Also, Gorgeous George can't keep his fucking mic pointed in a different direction than Goes. So the entire time, he sounds like he's announcing out of a stadium, an empty stadium. It's the most frustrating shit. By the way, if you guys didn't figure out my skip earlier. But, yeah, just, man, it's frustrating to hear. And that's why, like I said, can't miss for me is Luke Thomas. He's talking about hard shit that is uncomfortable conversations that need to be had. He outwardly is talking about how... Ariel's statements about, like, oh, how he's uncomfortable saying whether or not the UFC should put on UFC 249, where it's like, it's your fucking job as a journalist, and also, Access Ariel being afraid to say something via blowback, shocking. And then, he did also give a shout out, Luke Thomas did, to Keenan Cornelius being like one of the responsible sobering voices in BJJ right now. Whereas you guys heard on the intro, Luke had a very salient point about like MMA is all about, every MMA fighter and every BJJ player is all about talking about, oh, well, you can't speak up about this because you haven't been there, you don't know. But then, like, all of a sudden, when it comes to science, they all have their own opinion, and it doesn't matter what people who have been there and people who know have to say. So, I don't know. It's frustrating, and it's an interesting take, and it's an interesting conversation that needs to be had. And
100%.
I would argue it's only the dumbest people that are not.
I was just looking on Twitter right now. Just
let me guess, the world's still burning.
What's up?
The world's still burning. Has Dana White caught a second lawsuit for hooking up with strippers?
I don't know about that's his whole fucking thing. I don't give a fuck about that. No, I was just looking up citations for.
I do when he's paying strippers a flat 10K fee, but he's paying fighters for a show and win.
Yeah, he's paying more than most fighters.
Well, not just he's paying more, but why is it that the stripper? I believe the quote from the article was. It wasn't majority of the time, but it was like usually paid the stripper 10K per visit. You're like, oh, really? Because most fighters usually get half their money unless they win. So it's funny that the stripper gets a flat rate. I don't know. Drives me nuts. But I am a salty bitch right now about everything.
Oh, so am I. You don't tell me. I'm actually not even not in a terrible mood. I'm in an irritated mood for sure. I think it's just like, I don't know. I will say though, what I'm going to watch tomorrow, as far as an off-topic thing, is I saw Ari Shaffir. I think he tweeted it out, or I was on his social media.
Episode.
Not that. I'm not watching that. Louis C.K. on his website has a brand new comedy special. I miss Louis C.K.'s comedy. I don't miss him. Technically, I'm saying I miss his stand-up. So I'm definitely going to be buying that tomorrow. I think it's $8.
Yeah, I think
I'm watching it.
$7.99, $8.99.
I was looking at some people reviews. They said it's fucking hilarious. And I'm like, hell yeah. Why not?
Louis C.K. is very funny, and
I miss his comedy.
Yeah,
so.
well, and I get why people are pissed at him, but like also.
Yeah, like I've acknowledged it. It was gross what he did.
It was gross, but
it was ridiculous.
It's not. There's levels to this shit, as MMA likes to say, and that is pretty low on the spectrum, as far as I'm concerned. But even funnier, I saw Luis J. Gomez tweet out the most Luis J. Gomez thing of all time, which is why he's funny and also why he's problematic. He tweeted out, "Wouldn't it be great if Louis C.K. just put out a $9 video of him jerking off, and everybody bought it?" It's like, yeah, that would be a very good joke. It'd be a very good joke. Very problematic and not at all acceptable, but super funny. All right. Well, on that note, why don't I rattle off some new shows to listen to, since there was surprisingly a ton. And Chris, let me know how you think about these and if you're interested in listening to them.
Cool.
Let's see. First one I listened to is How I Met the Matt, which is a show that's hosted by Bill Welker of MMA on the Rocks podcast. It's a new show he's doing where he talks basically to people. He talks to people that he knows about how they got into not just mixed martial arts, but jiu-jitsu also. So the first guest is Steve Maraboli, who is, you guys would know him from the MMA and Beyond podcast. He's the guy who basically runs that. And he's also a guy who was trained at Henzo's for a long time. And that's actually where he's met Bill and rolled with Bill in the past. But it's an interesting conversation. And it's just Bill basically talking to people about how and why they got into either jiu-jitsu or MMA or martial arts in general. And, of course, Bill is a purple belt out of Florida who's gone trained up at Henzo's a bit in the past. And also they have I believe he's a Gracie Tampa, if I remember right. And they have a kind of an affiliation. That's where guys like Matt Frivola have trained down there a bunch of times. Steve the Manimal has trained down there, if I remember right. So, just an interesting episode, and I like Bill Welker a lot. But it was cool hearing him kind of go more in depth on the BJJ side and just talk about that and podcasting in general with Steve Maraboli. I liked it quite a bit.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. I like Bill Welker a lot. I haven't listened to MMA on the Rocks in a minute. but I remember. I mean, he mostly is preview stuff as far as fight cards, but yeah, it's good to know that he's bringing out just more content, especially with. I mean, I feel like at this point, with everyone being just staying the fuck at home, you can only put out more content, right? Or at least do new ideas.
You would think so, man. Like,
Yeah.
you would. That's one thing that has been cool is a lot of MMA podcasts are just like doing extra content just because they have the extra time, which I've been trying to do the same. I have not had extra time really. I actually have the same amount of time, actually less time, since right now I'm basically running everything over here at my place. But there's some stuff that went down. But yeah, I've been trying to put out more content even with less time available. So it's very cool seeing people who have like a lot more free time and not that Bill's one of those guys. I just mean in general, like there's a lot of new shows and launched this week that I'm excited about. So I actually didn't even get to all the new shows I wanted to this week because there were so many that came out. And it's rare that you have like 3 or 4 or 5 debuts of a show in a week, much less more than that. And so keep on moving on, since I have all debut episodes for my new shows this week. The second of which is Stephen Ray and Marcel Dorff over at the Loudmouth MMA Network. Have their new show called Euro MMA. However, it's Euro MMA and then Niax. However, when you read it, it makes sense. When you try and say it, it's Euro MMA. I guess is how you're supposed to say it.
All I heard was Animaniacs.
Yeah, essentially. It's fucking... I'm going to start saying the states in order here in a second. Give me a second. I don't know that. Alabama... That's the only one. I think it's Alabama, Arkansas is the only 2 I remember.
No, wouldn't it be Alabama, Alaska, Arkansas? I don't know. My brain is not working.
Yeah, it's Alabama, Alaska, Arkansas...
Connecticut, I can't think of whatever.
I used to know.
California, Connecticut.
Yeah. There we go. Let's not do the... Yo, it's Animaniacs. Anyway. Yeah. They talk about top European prospects. Yeah, so that's what this show's about. Is they're essentially talking about a lot of European prospects to keep an eye on. Guys like Askar Askarov that have made UFC debuts. I also talked a bit about some of the Cage Warriors guys to keep an eye on. And yeah, just cool in general. I really like Marcel Dorff. I wasn't very familiar with Stephen Ray prior to this, but I think it'll be interesting to hear kind of how that show works going forward. Because previously Marcel Dorff was doing the breakdown shows, but with no cards happening. It's cool to see him starting up a new show talking about European prospects, since, I mean, outside of like Eurobash and Severe MMA, there's not, I mean, there's some guys that still talk local European stuff, but not quite as in depth. So I definitely am appreciating that. Speaking of Loudmouth MMA, they also started a new version of an old podcast for the 3rd time. Around the Cage, aka Between the Links, is now named Last One Standing, which they started episode 1 of. So since Mike Heck just recently left for MMA Fighting, where he's now doing his own show, which I'll get to in a second, they started a spinoff of Between the Links, where it's going to normally be hosted by Kyle Steele. However, Keith Schillen ended up hosting this episode because Kyle had some stuff come up last minute. But the panel for this episode, which also the panel's audio is pretty low. I'm guessing this is a thing that Keith and everybody will get shored up by next week, because that's just like a slider that sounds like they didn't catch in time. But it sounds like the panel for this week was Sean Ayaz, Patrick. It's spelled Auger, but it's not Auger. It's like Azure or something like that. And I apologize for fucking up your name, bro. And then Riley Contact is the last one. And then they had the guest on, Ryan Sprague. I hope I'm saying that name right. If you looked at any of these on paper, these are like, I would say, top 20 hard names to pronounce in MMA podcasting. So Hopefully I'm not fucking him up too bad. But Keith explains that the format of the show is going to go fairly similar to how Between the Links used to work, where it's a debate style show, and it's kind of, you go through rounds, and you get scores, and then kind of you end up debating and kind of narrow down to who wins the show, right? And who makes the best arguments. But the difference is they're not scored round by round now. Instead, they do 3 questions, and then they get seeded 1 through 4, and then basically there's a bracket from there where 2 people go head to head, 2 people go head to head, and then the winners go head to head. And it's cool. I like the change up. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. It sounds like they're really changing up the panel, which makes sense because with Mike Heck gone and with Craig Allen gone, and I'm curious to see if Davidson Baker is going to end up reappearing here and there on this show. But it makes sense with like a good portion of the cast gone from that show. They would change up the format a bit. But let's see. Some of the questions they went through is, are you confident Dana and the UFC are going to pull off 249? Who could you get to headline the card? And then they talk like stuff like John getting arrested, whether Kevin Lee should stay at 155, whether Chandler should look at free agency or go to stay with Bellator, that kind of stuff. So overall, I really enjoyed it quite a bit.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Well, and you liked Between the Links previously, which means anybody liked Between the Links previously, they'll like this show. It definitely is going to have some growing pains over the next week or two, just as they kind of work out their format. But also this one had, like I said, had Keith as the host, and Keith is much better lighting people on fire and just like burning everything to the ground than he is trying to like coordinate and be cordial. So I feel like with Kyle Steele, who's very good at being cordial and kind of being a traffic cop when it comes to podcasting, I feel like he will. I feel like that's a good fit for that. So I think it should be good. And then speaking of Mike Heck, who just recently left Loudmouth MMA, we have a new show on MMA fighting called What the Heck with Mike Heck, episode 1, which if you guys wanted an MMA fighting interview show, it's back, and it's Mike Heck. And I would argue Mike Heck is top 2 of the people who I've seen host interview shows on MMA fighting, if you know what I mean. Interview focus shows. I don't know. I like this episode quite a bit. He opens up with an interview with John Anik about the UFC 249 possibilities, which makes sense if you guys have been following Mike Heck. He's the guy who used to do video for the Anik and Florian podcast. So it kind of makes sense that he would be involved in, or that he would get Anik on his first episode, but they talk about Anik still wanting to call the fight. They talk about Habib dropping out. This is the quote where you probably seen going around where John Anik says John getting arrested is him bottoming out, which, no, super not bottoming out when you're just getting slaps on the wrist all the time. You guys will know when John bottoms out. And it's going to be either gay sex or it's either going to be some like Tiger King style gay sex situation where he's trying to buy meth and or blow and or tigers, or all 3, or it's going to be someone dying. So that's how John Jones' saga is going to end unless he gets new people around him and gets away from his fucking management. Let's see. Valerie Lareda, there's an interview with as well. I don't know why people are talking to Valerie Lareda. She's won 2 fights. That's not true. I know exactly why people are talking to Valerie Lareda. Because she has assets, bro. Yeah, she's marketable as shit, dog. But as we've seen, marketable only works while you're winning fights and also taking whatever fights you're given. Otherwise, you end up posting naked pictures with your fiance on Instagram that nobody wants to see. And then, speaking of people who are getting fucked over by fight offers and getting their contract extended. And then lastly, there's an interview with Dom Cruz. Oh, no, sorry. Actually, there's 2 more interviews. There's an interview with Dom Cruz, which I really enjoyed.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Dom brought up some interesting stuff. He's like, listen, I saw the report go out about me fighting Corey Sandhagen, but there's only one person that's a common denominator in that story, and that's Sean Shelby. Because Sean Shelby talked to me, and I told Sean Shelby, what do I need to do to get a title fight? He said, you have to beat Peter Yan. So as far as Dom Cruz was concerned, he's fighting either Peter Yan or Marlon Moraes, so he can get a title shot. Then Dom Cruz sees on Twitter Corey Sandhagen being like, "Yo, Dom, you gonna accept this fight or what?" Which clearly means that Sean Shelby went and told Corey Sandhagen the way he gets a title fight is through Dom Cruz.
Yeah.
And so they did. That's kind of, and it makes sense to how we've been seeing the Twitter interactions go. That's how they're booking fights right now. Is they're literally telling multiple people who they're like, here, if that's what you want, here's what you have to do. But they're also just doing it so they can gauge audience reaction and see which one is more popular.
I'm still adamant in that Henry Cejudo being the bantamweight champ is one of the worst things to happen. Just
to any division.
No, to just any. It's a fucking embarrassment to the sport.
Conor is the only person who's abandoned divisions more severely.
At least they were able with Conor just to strip him and move on. Yes, he did hold up some stuff, and at least he admitted that he. I don't think he ever said I have zero interest defending the belt. I think he always was just I want it. Yeah. Henry is just annoying as fuck in that he's just like bend the knee with this whole shtick, which it's not. I don't give a fuck if it's a shtick or not. It's just annoying. Like, dude, just go ahead.
Lazy and boring, and also,
and it doesn't help that
it's not his.
It doesn't help that a pandemic had to fucking go in, and I can't say fuck everything up because that's like saying you're putting the UFC above a pandemic, right? It didn't fuck everything up. It's just delaying stuff, and Dana just needs to get off his high horse at this point. Like, listen, let's rebook everything for the fall. If it's feasible, granted how our government wants to go about this, which I'm not going to get political. I can always say that off screen.
I think we can just. I think we can clearly state that our government is just trying to light the country on fire and see how the trash fire keeps us warm. At this point, like we're not even the most responsible people in our government are kind of dropping the ball. We are, if not as bad as Italy, give us a week or two. Like only the UK is going to get fucked up as bad as us, and maybe Africa. My friend Jake, he sent me. He said, "Have you seen Wikipedia edits for 249?" I think they just got fixed, but he sent me a screenshot. Let me send this to you. I don't know if you have your phone on you. This is fucking hilarious. Actually, wait. I can go like this. Watch this. I can just go like this, and I'll send it to you right now via Skype. Oh, okay.
Right? Let me.
Sure, maybe.
Let me see if this works.
Wonder how this works.
Let me see. We've done this before.
I don't know that I can pull it up, though. I mean, I can pull it up, but I don't know that I can show anybody.
Oh yeah, huh?
You just show your fucking phone to the screen.
Okay, or I'll just read them off. How about that? And that's just actually better. It makes way more sense. So it says, main event, John Jones versus Furhat. That's like a person I said what the fuck that was.
Okay.
Must be. Yeah. Anyways, women's strawweight, Amanda Nunes versus Alistair Overeem. Evidently, that's a fight happening. Light heavyweight is Daniel Cormier versus Stipe Miocic. So they just put the fights in. It's just so it doesn't disregard, I guess, the weight classes.
But I did see that. Yeah.
Yeah. Alexander Volkanovski versus leg kicks is on the card. Israel Adesanya versus slavery is on the card. Joe Rogan is headlining the prelims against Dana White.
I watched that.
Adolf Hitler is fighting either Mao or Joseph Stalin.
Would watch.
Leopold of Belgium II is versing Pol Pot. Like, oh my god.
Great. This is by the way, the greatest card in history.
Yeah, Valentina is rematching Ioana, evidently.
That's a weird pick.
We got Paulo Costa fighting Robert Whittaker, and finally to cap off the card, we have Donald Trump versus Nancy Pelosi. So
that's lazy.
Yeah.
There's so many better options.
Yeah.
I would argue Donald Trump versus the free world. Actually, it should be Donald Trump versus coronavirus. Definitely. That's not even. Or Dana White versus coronavirus. You can book either one of those right now, and they're both be on board. So, that's lazy.
There's nothing else for me unless you want to say I'm fucking done. I'm mentally exhausted talking about this.
I got a handful of honorable mentions I'm going to run through. MMA Depressed Us 47, which was the card they did with Adesanya versus Romero. Also on that, they watched Saperbek Safarov versus Nico Negumereanu and Pennington versus Holm 2. Probably the hardest MMA Depressed Us I've ever had to get through as far as how brutally boring those fights are. They're really, really genuinely terrible fights. Also, I'm pretty sure Holly Holm and Izzy lost those fights on rewatch. Like, Holly Holm definitely lost the Pennington fight again. On rewatch, she just holds her against the cage the whole time. It's so frustrating. She doesn't do a fucking thing. She literally just punches her leg from the clinch. Like, it's really bad. The Writer and the Fighter, episode 63, really good episode. Jake Smith talks about winning at the Submission Underground event that he did with Chael.
That's right. I saw that on Fight Pass. I might have to check that out.
Yeah, it's very weird, but it was pretty cool. Also, spoiler alert, it did not take place in a grain silo. That got confirmed. And also, Jake's girlfriend ate the skin off of his leftover chicken again. Which, if you guys know anything about that show, you know shit went down. Protecting Neck, episode 178 was really good. It's the top 5 worst stoppages with Aaron Bronstetter. Really like that one. MMA Yesterday, episode 41 was really good. They talk about like the insane Tank Abbott hype on the card. Ken Shamrock being on the broadcast and like way over hyping everybody. Linland versus Baroni. Just wild overall. Severe MMA, episode 254. You talked about 255, but 254 was very good as well, which was from either last Saturday or Sunday. Just a lot of good talk on there. Also, Sean talks about watching The Wire, which still say, Sean Sheehan watching The Wire, fucking top content for me right now. His Twitter.
Yeah, he mentioned that.
So good.
Yeah, he said some season 3 spoilers too, which is kind of funny.
It's hilarious. He's just tweeting stuff out. He's just tweeting quotes out as he's watching. Like, it's really great. Fights Gone By, episode 202 was really good. Also, Jack Slack mentions that there is a Louis Theroux doc about Joe Exotic around. Evidently, it's on the UK Netflix, but I don't think it's on American Netflix because I couldn't find it. But seems like it's probably pretty good, considering Louis Theroux docs. Eurobash, episode 76 was very solid. Interviews with Jojo Calderwood, Nicholas Dalby, Morgan Charrier, and Pedro Carvalho. MMA and Beyond, episode 108. Evidently Evidently Bill Welker of MMA on the Rocks was able to convince them to start recording remotely on video. So Ray, Steve, and the Manimal, 2 Steves, are recording that now. And as you can imagine, the Manimal has zero control over the audio of his voice, whether he's using a microphone or not. So that's a little bit of a hectic episode. Hey, Chris, did you know the Morning Wood Show came back this week?
No way.
First show since 2018. And they're mostly talking about Corona lockdown and Tiger King and why Dana's still trying to put on 249. But yeah, first episode since I think like June of 2018. So that's pretty cool. I'm excited about that. I recommend that one for sure. And then Weekly Scraps episode 73 was really good. Cody Marrow, who you guys would know as the new, I don't know if he's marketing director or social media consultant or whatever he's doing. I mean, he's basically the dude running the background of running the production side outside of audio of the Anakin Florian podcast. And he's also the guy who's basically been the showrunner for Weekly Scraps outside of Aljo, rather. So it's cool hearing him get on with Aljo and just kind of chop it up, talk about how dumb it is to say fighters should adapt their training around the coronavirus and stuff like that.
Fuck anyone that says that.
Dude, it's the dumbest shit. And Yeah, it's a very
Just fuck
like
Twitter in general.
yeah, Twitter's a trap. To be fair, it's getting better because people are finally starting to slow down with like the Luke Thomas hates MMA kind of bullshit where you're like, oh, oops, Luke Thomas has been right for 2 weeks and everybody's been trying to shit on him. And he's gonna keep getting right. Spoiler alert, because he listens to although Luke Thomas, I would argue, doesn't necessarily qualify himself as a smart person, Luke Thomas absolutely qualifies himself as a person who listens to smart people.
Yep.
It's an important fucking thing to do, ladies and gentlemen. Weighing in, episode 47 was really good because it's always nice to hear John McCarthy talk about John Jones in an honest way because he's one of the few people who does. And it's just like, yeah, John's a fuck up and nothing's going to happen until people treat him like an adult. Believe You Me, episode 212 was really good, mostly because a lot of Tiger King talk and then a lot of talk about DJ Mikey B. Since I don't know if you've been watching Bisbing's Twitter and Instagram, but Mikey B's back on the ones and twos, fucking spinning records and chopping shit up, Chris, and it's real good. He's just playing house music, fucking spinning records. It's genuinely been fun, so I recommend it.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, and then lastly, the only other one I had is Punch Drunk Sports episode 386, barely sports related. However, Jason Tebow does actually go through and break down the John Jones situation as a pro-alcoholic, which was very funny. He's like, listen, if you're drinking mezcal and you're halfway through a bottle of mezcal and it's in your car with a loaded weapon that you are accused of firing, that's the kind of thing where you're where you're drinking mezcal and like that's a 2-bottle night of mezcal. Like that, you're not just lightly taking sips of mezcal. Like no, you're killing that bottle in at least a night, if not 2. And he's like, it wasn't a giant bottle, but it was a 2-night bottle, and he was halfway through it. So thought that was a funny way to get the take on that. So yeah, overall, bunch of wild shit happening, but fun week in MMA podcast, all things considered. And man, it seems like a lot of people are getting real creative with their content, as well as like with new shows and new ways to kind of put out content. So I think that's gonna be pretty cool going forward.
Yeah, man, I'm looking forward to some of that. I'm just, yeah, I have nothing else to say. I don't know. I'm just fucking scatterbrained right now, to be honest.
Fair. Well, good news is we're doing a commentary after this. All you gotta do is point and laugh at whatever the fuck movie we're watching. Speaking of which, we're watching Locked Down from 2010, which is a movie by director Daniel Zerilli, evidently, starring Vinnie Jones, Tony Sheehan, Bai Ling, Kimbo Slice, Rashad Evans, and oh boy,
R.I.P. Kimbo.
Does this seem like a fucking thing? Here, I'll read you guys the description. Danny is a respected cop that is set up after an investigation goes wrong. While lying low in his new jail cell, Danny is forced to get involved in the inmates' underground cage fighting circuit. With the help of Irving, a former MMA champion, Danny devises a scheme to bring justice and innocence to his family's name if he can get out of the cage alive. This has a 4.2 out of 5 on IMDb, which has to be a joke.
Hell yeah.
That has to be a joke. I don't know what that means. This was also ranked number 17 in the top 17 movies, MMA movies that MMA list.
Well, I tried looking at that list again, and it's maybe it's on mobile, but their list is so fucked up. As far as
it's because it's a clickbait garbage website that makes you click through every single one to get each one.
It's just stupid. Like, I don't want to fucking individually press through each thing. Like, yes, I get it. Warrior's the best movie. I already guessed that.
Yeah, but Chris, how are you gonna get all the ad revenue if you don't put each movie on a different page?
Yeah. All right, I'm fucking ready, dude. I'm gonna end this and switch out my right fucking microphone.
There we go. Well, on that note, everybody, you guys can follow us, TSOV Pod, on Twitter. Let us know what MMA podcast you guys are listening to, and if we missed any this week, since we always do. There's always stuff on my list that I don't even have time to get to, even when I'm listening to stuff in 1.5 speed, just try and burn through it. So we always appreciate your recommendations throughout the week if you catch anything good. And also, if you like and subscribe on YouTube, that gives us that helps us out in the numbers or the metrics or whatever, I guess. Also, if you helpful for you guys if you hit the alert or the bell icon. It'll tell you when we go live, so that way you can see when we put up new videos or when we are going live doing the show, since it's kind of all over the place lately. And yeah, on that note, I think that's just about everything. Chris, do you have anything else you want to touch on before we get out of here and do this movie?
Yeah, if you are with your roommates or loved ones or whatever, get yourself a couch co-op game. If you have a gaming system, please do it. It's helping my sanity.
What are some good ones?
So since there's a big sale, so if you're Xbox or PlayStation owner, I think even Switch owner, there's big flash sales, or not, there's big spring sales right now, what they're calling it. I just bought Diablo 3 Ultimate Edition for only like $19, and it's fantastic.
Game.
I remember I played Diablo 3 and it first came out in fall 2012 on a very, very shitty laptop with low settings, and I remember sometimes I would get like good frames per second, and holy fuck, this thing runs at almost 60 frames per second on my PS4 Pro, and it's been a blast playing with my brother and my very good friend Trevor. That's right, hilarious.
Trevor, who you guys know from our episode 100, I believe.
Yeah. We've had a lot of fun, and we're just like, dude, why is this so easy? So we're already on expert mode. We haven't even fought the first boss yet. But Then again, all three of us have played a lot of RPGs, so I figured, But I was thinking, no, that's definitely going to get hard at some point. So looking forward to it.
For sure. Although they fixed a lot of like the specking issues in Diablo 3 from what I remember.
Yeah, I'm playing as some new class called like Necromancer or some shit.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting.
That shit's tight.
Yeah, I'm liking it a lot. Yeah.
So. Cool, man. Hey, honestly, what I recommend is a game that sounds like the most stressful of all time. Actually, I recommend 2 games. First off, I've been playing a lot of Roller Coaster Tycoon. I believe it's 3. Okay. Here, let me look.
Are you having everyone die?
No, I play it like an adult.
I know.
I try and make roller coasters and make theme parks and stuff. It's really fun. It's an old-ass game, but it's really fun. The other game I've been playing that, man, I cannot recommend highly enough is the Cook Serve Delicious series. Here's the best way I can describe this game is think Typing of the Dead meets, or you know what Typing of the Dead is?
Remind me.
So it's House of the Dead, but all keyboard.
Yes. Okay.
So like there'll be like words popping up above monsters' heads.
Dude, can I download that for Mac? I want to fucking play that.
It's probably on Steam. It's really good. But
damn, that sounds fun.
This game is kind of like that, but instead it's a cooking game. So like you are working in a bunch of different restaurants, and you're making a certain type of food that's on the menu for that day, and then you're going through and hitting key combinations to make the food, serve the food, queue up orders, all that stuff. And it sounds stressful. It's the most calming thing I've ever done in my life, probably. There's something about it that like just the rhythm of it is super, super calming. And there's nice. Cook Serve Delicious 2 and Cook Serve Delicious 3. I recommend both of them because they are fucking fantastic.
And my last thing before I fuck off, for all you movie fanatic cinephiles out there, please, please, please check out the movie 1917, directed by Sam Mendes. Holy fuck, what a great movie.
That's what I've been hearing. What's his face?
Very good.
Brian Campbell from Morning Kombat did like a whole thing saying like it's probably his favorite war movie ever.
No, it's phenomenal. Like I would put it. I'm not gonna be like, oh, how is it compared to Saving Private Ryan or Apocalypse? It's up there. It's good. It's almost one shot, one take. It's really impressive.
That's what I heard.
But and it shows you the horrors of World War I too. Or they actually didn't even really get into the horror. They show you it, but they could have gotten a lot worse. It's pretty crazy. And I'm glad World War I was kind of, because if you think of World War I films, most of them are probably made in the 30s and the 40s, or even then.
I mean, there's some that we did after that. But yeah, mostly we definitely World War I's like the least romanticized of the wars over, at least from the U.S. perspective.
Yeah,
for sure. Cool, man. Well, I still have that on my list. I need to get to it. Also, I should shout out It's the Real podcast. Their quarantine radio. I talk about it every day. I do a daily episode. I listen to it every day, and honestly, it's the most soothing thing I have going in my life right now. Just waking up and listening to that show is where all they're doing, if you guys have not been listening to the daily stuff I've been talking about, all it's the real guys are doing for quarantine radio is they're just calling their friends and asking how they're doing. And it's just like they call a couple of their friends each day, talk about what they're doing, how they're coping with it, the cool shit they're trying to like learn or do while they're killing time. And it's just super comforting in like a very real way. So definitely recommend that. Also, this past weekend, Theo Von show, he got Bhagavan Doc Antle on from Tiger King. So that's worth listening to, because it's just Theo Von being like, man, dog, so like, you really got 8 wives? He's like, no, I don't have 8 wives, Theo. They made that shit up for the movie. He's like, damn, dog. It's fucking great. Theo's the
That
best.
sounds hilarious.
It's really good. And Theo asks all the questions you want to hear. He doesn't press him on it because Theo's a comedian and doesn't give a shit. But he definitely asks all the weird questions you want to hear. And then lastly, the Laps Fan Podcast. It is WrestleMania weekend after all. And as someone who doesn't give a fuck about pro wrestling, I love the shit out of the Laps Fan Podcast. And they're doing very cool shit. So they're a podcast who, I wouldn't say they hate pro wrestling. I would say they love pro wrestling so much that they're mad at the state it's in. And JP already said that he is drinking heavily for WrestleMania for their companion recordings, and that's gonna be good stuff. He's gonna be real mad at that. I have a feeling the Shayna Baszler Becky Lynch match he's gonna be super pissed about, as well as well, actually most of the matches. Now that I think about it. Since I made the mistake of trying to watch a couple before this, Chris, spoiler alert, pro wrestling's bad, but also pro wrestling's way worse when there's no one in the audience, and it's just 2 momos in a ring playing.
You couldn't pay me to watch it right now. Fuck all of that.
It's
Oh my
bad.
god.
To be fair, it's like it's just the right kind of shit show that I'm enjoying because I like laughing at it. But yeah, no, it's very bad. It's not good. All right. Well, on that note, we are out of here on Wednesday or Thursday, depending on when I get my shit together editing-wise. We are going to be watching Locked Down, the MMA movie from 2010. You can find it on Amazon and YouTube. I think it's like $6 HD to buy on Amazon, or like $3 non-HD. So we will have links for all that when we post that. And until next time, everybody, go do something decadent. We out. Late.
Liked by the sound of violence.